Good morning, Mary. Day after Christmas, and welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. Had a break yesterday. We're back at it today. Hope everybody had an awesome Christmas, whether you're in Liberty Hill or Tyler or wherever you are watching. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. If you knew what was going on in Ian's household of the feline variety, you would of the cat is causing some issues up there. But we got some good football to talk about. We got a lot of insight on Arizona State to provide, and hey, since this will be one of our last Thursday live, I believe, before the actual Peach Bowl. Maybe next time we're live, I'll be on a plane, so we'll have to see what y'all can do. But this is our last live before the Peach Bowl, before the rest of the playoff. And, Justin, I think we have to expect that the second round is going to be a little bit more entertaining than the first, although I'm sure Texas fans hope it's not that way.
In theory, you should expect that, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if Clemson wasn't a better team than Arizona State. I don't know. I know Arizona State is really confident. I know they are flying sky high right now. They've played really good football the last couple months collectively, and they've got a fun running back. They've got some playmakers. I think people forget they're still not as solid up front as some of these other teams Texas has played. And I don't know how many NFL prospects are even on that roster. Now, that doesn't mean win or lose, but I mean that's a pretty good indicator. And so I don't know what to expect. Ian, didn't you say something about another similar to the Big 12 championship last year, or maybe somebody did? It's going to be interesting, but I think matchup wise, I think Texas maybe blows the doors off on paper. We just got to see how that transpires on the field.
Ian, how did Arizona State go from picked to be last in the Big 12, which is, that's a rotating door these days, to winning the Big 12?
That's a great question. I'm going to take a quick look. So in 2023, Justin's comp to, I guess, Oklahoma State is the comp there, right?
Yeah, that would make sense. Jag quarterback, good enough offensive line, great running back.
So last year, Oklahoma State was 40th in offensive FEI, which is just your offensive ranking adjusted for opponent and game context. 40th in offense, 35th in defense. And Arizona State was in the dumps on both.
Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this year, Arizona State is 6th in offense and 35th on defense. So they're actually quite a bit better than Oklahoma State's team last year. They did have, who's the receiver? Jordan Tyson.
They lost Jordan Tyson. And
they lost Jordan Tyson.
That was big.
That's probably worth like 10 spots at least in your FEI. Maybe more, honestly. But they just whooped Iowa State without him. So how did they get so much better? I guess Scatabo lost like 20 pounds or something in the offseason and just transformed into like his full final form, any old Toonami Dragon Ball Z millennials out there. And they got Leavitt from Michigan State, who came out of Oregon. He was like a low 4-star out of Oregon, dual threat guy. He must have chosen Michigan State over Arizona State because of Dillingham leaving. I think Dillingham recruited him out there. And then Dillingham got him in the transfer portal after he redshirted at Michigan State when the coaching staffs changed. So Leavitt and Super Saiyan 3 for Cam Scatabo. Plus he added, the fusion dance with Sam Leavitt. And then there you go. You have a pretty potent offense just based off those two.
One of the things that we were talking about, Ian, is that Dillingham, very young. I think he's younger than you, maybe just like a year or two older than me. He's from the Mike Norvell tree of offense. So what you saw at Florida State last year with Jordan Travis and Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, some of those great passing attacks. That's kind of what he's trying to replicate. He has also a little bit of some Gus Malzahn, a little bit of that to him just from his time at Auburn. Obviously, kind of was able to call the shots himself over at Oregon before going to his alma mater. And Justin, it's a very, very interesting story. You know, he is extremely young. You can tell, not in a negative way. You can just tell he's young compared to other college football head coaches and stuff like that. And yet he's at his alma mater. He's been in coaching for almost 10 years already. And he has produced a Power 4 conference champion in year 2 when they were pretty moribund last year.
They were. And I mean, think about it like this. The team was pillaged of sorts through the NIL era. They lost a Heisman Trophy quarterback.
Well, they ran him off, kind of, sort of.
And that's a good point. That's an excellent point.
And that was Herm, too, who was an idiot.
Yeah, it was that was what the program was at, though. It was not in a good place. And I'm not even sure if Dillingham shaves yet. Like, I've seen him 3 or 4 days, and there's no shadow. So, you know, puberty's about to come. And then I think it's going to change his world. But at the same time, he's really picked second to last in the Big 12, made the most out of the transfers, really, really pushed those guys. I mean, we've even noted how many former Longhorns are there. Look how many former Texans. I was looking at the roster this morning. The first 12 guys I looked at, 10 were from Texas. Like, there's a Texas flavor in this program, and a part of that is Brian Carrington bringing over some of his recruiting stuff from Texas when he was in the Lone Star State. And so it's a young group. It's a young staff. It's a lot different than what they had before. You can better believe that. And at the same time, maybe Kenny shaves for this one. Maybe he doesn't have to. I don't know. He is young, maybe too young, forever young.
Get to this one from Brett Nelson. Thank you for this one. I think they should still rest Bond. I mean, here's the thing. There is some relevant.
Was that Brett's idea on the board? I don't think I knew that.
What do you think about this one?
I think if he can play, you play him. There was a couple of things like Quinn almost got picked trying to throw to Wingo because he was throwing a route that Wingo wasn't running against Clemson. And the self-sack that everybody's been arguing about, that me and Connor actually made a Zapruder film of Sark's reaction on the sideline and put it on the message board the other day for Christmas. What happened was Quinn pulled the ball out in an RPO to throw a glance to Silas Bond. No.
Bolden.
Silas Bolden. These all their names are like one.
They are. They really are.
He pulled to throw a glance to Silas Bolden, and Avion Terrell had him covered up in press coverage, and Bolden couldn't break off of him. And that's why Quinn didn't throw the glance. And then he was like, well, now what do I do? And he ended up taking a slide for a sack. All that to say, they really only have one true outside receiver that's ready for playoff football in Matthew Golden. If Bond can give you anything, I think you got to play him.
Yeah.
But I think maybe me and Brett could come to some agreement in that if Bond is not, if he's going to play like he did against Georgia, make Golden the feature. Don't play Bond maybe a little better just for reliability. Although he had some similar reliability issues against Georgia, right? Where he was not on the right route or whatever. If he can play and do the right thing, then play him, but just maybe feature Golden. That's the compromise I would strike.
Well, let's get into Texas offense versus the Arizona State defense. Ian, you've got something working on that, and get through comments first. Texas needs to be ready for 4th down attempts as they don't trust their kicker. Texas is like 117 in special teams, SP plus. Arizona State's worse. A lot of that comes from just yardage, but kicking definitely factors in on that one. And then this one, we can talk about speed. Isaiah Bond is a good one, especially when talking about Arizona State's defense. So how does Texas team speed match up with Arizona State? And then how does maybe Texas try to use that speed to get around what the Sun Devils are going to do on defense?
I don't know if I don't know if speed is necessarily the biggest advantage Texas has.
Size in the trenches, in my opinion.
Yeah, size in the trenches, I think, is a bigger one. To me, Arizona State's secondary is pretty good. I don't think that's like the weak spot of the team. It may look like it, but it'll only be because they get asked to do so much to try to stop Texas. They don't have speed at receiver, though. And but then again, that's going to be sort of a hidden deal where they just have to run the ball because they can't get open outside. And maybe they have to run into a box that has Michael Taft or Jelani McDonald sitting there next to the linebackers.
What about if you flip it on the other side when talking about what Arizona State tries to accomplish on defense?
We'll see. I mean, they don't have Isaiah Bond speed, but is he even going to play? I don't even know. So if he plays and he's 100%, he'd make Georgia look slow. But if not, I don't know if that's going to be that big a deal. But Texas could absolutely crease them because they're always they're kind of similar to like an old Gary Patterson defense when he would blitz a lot, where like he'd have small guys up front and he would just attack and slant them and move them like crazy and then cover them up by dropping the safeties in behind him. And that's kind of what Arizona State's deal is. So if you misdirect them or hit them, then all of a sudden they're overcommitted, if that makes sense. And then, I mean, you make anybody's safeties change direction and chase somebody in the open field, they're going to look slow. And that's definitely what will happen to Arizona State.
And Justin, I think you mentioned this earlier, like Arizona State's good. Like you got to give what the credit they deserve for winning their conference title, but
yeah,
you still get to this point. This has been a big discussion about the playoff over the past week or so. Like Texas probably faced of their first two games, probably faced the tougher challenge in Clemson as opposed to Arizona State.
They did. If we were doing this playoff format in, let's say, real life, Texas would have been the one with the bye because of where they were ranked, because of what because of their season. Clemson and Arizona State would have battled it out, and Texas would have got the scraps of the winner there. But, the format is the format. So this is what it is. Honestly, I think Clemson might be a better matchup for Texas than Arizona State. I think they were playing better at the right time. Cade Klubnik played an exceptional game. He is only getting better. He is definitely on some big boards for 2026. I just think it's funny that Texas, it's a similar matchup in my opinion. Like I think there's good players at Arizona State, just like at Clemson. I just think Texas from top to bottom has the one thing we've been talking about since spring, depth. Texas lost 2 starting offensive linemen that are going to be playing on Sundays next year, and they didn't miss a beat. I think that is incredibly significant. And so for Arizona State, I feel like it's kind of like an extension of Clemson. They're good. There's some talented guys you've got to pay attention to on both sides of the ball. But if Texas does what they've been doing all season long, I think the Sharps in Vegas have this right. I think this might be a 2-touchdown game.
Watching the Clemson game back, they had some real dudes on that team. Like Avion Terrell is one of the best corners in the country. He gave Texas a lot of trouble. Peter Woods was in the backfield a lot. That was really good. They kind of neutralized TJ Parker because they have Kelvin Banks. If Texas didn't have Kelvin Banks, you probably would have seen that TJ Parker is one of the better players in the country. Those outside receivers I warned everybody about.
TJ Moore is legit. Ask Manny Muhammad.
Cooked Manny Muhammad. Who's Wesco? Brian Wesco.
Brian Wesco from Midlothian.
He got shut down, but it was because he was up against the Thorpe winner. Cade Klubnik is obviously the best quarterback Texas has faced this year.
You're tied in.
Tight end is good. Watt is good. They had so many players where it was like, this team, they're not really there as a team. I think Arizona State is probably a more cohesive team that functions better as a unit than Clemson.
I'll give you that.
In some ways. But, yeah, Clemson had some freaking dudes on their team.
Peter Woods was in the backfield so much, you'd think he's looking for real estate in Austin.
Yeah.
Love that one. Before we keep on going, you set it up, but I got to hit the other one. Before we keep on going, got to show some love to our sponsor, but we got to go with Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Thank you, LC. We've kind of danced around it a little bit, but we have to dive into the player that we know is going to be the focus for Texas, for Arizona State, for everybody in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and that's Cam Skattebo. Legit a terrifying college football player, and Justin, he's really the big reason that Arizona State was entertaining this year, and I think he earned top 5 or top 10 billing in the Heisman race. So number 5, and they invited 4. So definitely someone Texas has to keep an eye on.
He is. He's that guy that, when we were done covering Texas stuff earlier this year, you turn on a game, Arizona State's on, and you watch this battering ram of a tailback that looks kind of like a mini me of Mike Allstott, but with speed. And he was just fun to watch. He played hard. You know what I noticed was that the team sort of rallied around him. The team, there was kind of they've got a spark about them. Listen, they're going to come in fearless in Atlanta. They for better or worse. And Skattebo's one of the reasons they kind of fall with him. They kind of go how he goes. That Big 12 championship was I think an opener for most people to introduce themselves to him. We've been watching him all year. He's been hell to tackle for a lot of schools. Just ask Texas State and Texas Tech. Those are 2 guys that actually got on him. But he's fun to watch, in my opinion. Like, there's no fullback anymore. That position outside of a Jim Harbaugh offense is dead for the most part. I'm sure Ian can give me a couple schools that still use it. Kansas State. I know they still do, but he's fun. He's a fun dude to watch, like a bowling ball of knives. And the thing is, he doesn't just run over you. He'll initiate some contact. He'll also make a cut. Ian said it earlier. The guy lost 20 pounds in the offseason and really kind of, transformed himself into the best, version of himself. And so I think as he goes, that team goes, and that's dangerous because when you can run the ball as effective as Arizona State has the last month, there's a reason to be confident. Your play calling gets more opened up. You can do more things. At this point, though, I want to see what Skattebo looks like running up against Texas D-line. I want to see what he looks like running up against Texas front 7. I think the dude gets drafted. Like there's some mock drafts out, and I think I've seen him anywhere between the 5th round and the 7th round. I think he gets drafted. I think the New Year's Day is going to be a fun test just of where exactly he's at in his career.
Ian, what do you see them trying to do? You and I talked a little bit about how there's some size on that Arizona State offensive line, maybe bulk, maybe not so much length. But how do they try to utilize him in the various run game schemes?
They got a gazillion power option schemes from the spread. And I wrote an article on Christmas Eve, Tuesday. You guys can go find it InsideTexas.com. There's probably some kind of promotion we have going where you can get an annual membership for a great price. And they run a ton of schemes like counter, power type stuff where they'll pull linemen from the backside and read unblocked defenders on the backside with the quarterback, Sam Levitt, who's surprisingly quick and powerful. And, pull linemen to lead block for Skattebo on the other side. And it gets to be really challenging for defenses because they have you spread out. And so your defense is not concentrated in the box necessarily. maybe you got one extra guy, but then they're blocking down with the tight end and pulling lead blockers for Scadaboo. And you're like, okay, we all got to get over here. But then if you leave the backside untended, then Levitt can pull the ball and run around the edge and go. I mean, he can get to the sideline like Arch Manning and get behind you. So, I mean, I think they're going to – they probably saw Arkansas had a little success with that against Texas in the zone option game. I almost want to say somebody else did too. I think that they will – that's just going to be the game plan. And if it doesn't work, I don't know if they have a plan B.
Do they try to block with 5, or do they usually do 6-man with the tight end stuff?
Like in pass protection?
No. In run, you said they spread them out to extremes.
No, their tight end will block.
Okay.
So they do have the tight end in, but then they still get – he's actually a pretty good blocker. And then they're pulling linemen, and then they get a +1 from using the quarterback. So they get –
yeah.
It's hard to get more than like 7 guys in the box on them. And they for your 7 guys, they have 6 blockers plus an option. So they still have an advantage.
Want to keep on going, see some other stuff on there. And then, Justin, I'll throw this. You kind of mentioned it. What are the thoughts on them barely beating Texas State and then getting beat by Texas Tech? Man, the fact that they went to San Marcos was a cool little trip. I almost went down there. Texas Tech, when was that game? Because the San Marcos one was in September, I think.
I want to say like late October.
Okay.
Late October.
I mean, that's kind of how the Big 12 operates, but that was one of 2 teams to beat them in conference play, correct?
I believe so. They had 2 losses, I think, in conference.
Yeah, I think they went 7-2. So it's like, yeah, they lost to Tech. It's not like Tech was like atrocious this year.
No, and that's part of it. Like you said, that's life in a conference, and it just happens to be the Big 12 where you're going to get – the Big 12 isn't an easy thing all the time. Like those guys get up and play on Saturdays, and that's why Tech, I think, they caught him slipping a little bit. And maybe Arizona State didn't – Texas has been guilty of going into a game against Tech and not being 100% dialed in or 100% focused for whatever reason. And that probably is part of that. Same thing with Texas State. Those games were earlier in the season, and I don't think you can measure them. What did Idaho almost beat Oregon earlier this year? The teams are totally different, in my opinion. They've gone through it. Look, Arizona State, that Big 12 championship, I think really opened their own eyes to their capabilities. I think it's like, look, we're not only winning the conference, we can make a run at this thing. They knew they were going to get that bye. They knew they were going to get an opportunity to prove it on the field. They've had 3 weeks to get healthy. That's a big thing. Texas didn't get that. They've had 3 more weeks, an extra week to actually prepare. And so I don't judge those games. I think they were too early in the season. I think Arizona State's a different team. They're hitting their skids at the right time. This is when you want to peak in college football, and they're doing that in late December and still playing. And so you really got to tip your cap. I don't think those other 2 games had too much to do with it. Could you watch that tape and pull a little bit? Probably, but only a little bit. I think so much has transpired since those games. I think Arizona State's playing with an unbelievable amount of confidence right now, and I think that's actually what makes them dangerous. Not so much Scadabo, it's the fact that they are playing on cloud 9 right now, and when those kids believe, that can be a ball game.
Real quick on that, you got to assume in the playoffs you're going to get the best version of a team, not the worst they looked over a full season.
Yeah,
because they're going to give you – they're not going to give Texas State attention or Texas Tech attention.
Right.
One of the other things is I saw somebody else mention it, and it kind of ties into what Splendid Daddy mentioned. A lot of I've seen some stuff make rounds at Arizona State. Oh, that's team of destiny. They believe. They got all this stuff going on.
We see that every week.
And I'm not going to say that's – I don't want to denigrate that. Like, belief matters, but Texas believes in themselves. Texas has a culture. Like, it's not – maybe you could put together an argument where if you believe Arizona State's got a better culture or something like that, then okay, cool. But do you have All-Americans on the defense? you have a Heisman running back. What else? Or a Heisman finalist, running back or top 5 running back. Does that overpower, actual talent? So I think it's awesome. And, SMU said the same thing. And I'm sure Jennings thought so too before he threw a couple pick sixes. But like just relying on narrative is not how you win football games. You win it by blocking and tackling. And Texas has been pretty good at blocking and tackling. And that's not to say Arizona State's not going to give them a game, because I do think there is a lot of value in not having played a football game. Just ask Notre Dame about Riley Mills. But I do think that there's also, a good sense that Texas, they're in the quarterfinals of the playoff. Like they're not going to be overlooking anybody. What do we know about this one? Out of the 6 Longhorns, is there anyone who's actually a starter? I think Prince Dorba and Xavier Alford. Correct?
Alford is the starter, right?
Troy Ameri is a starter now because Tyson's out. That's 3.
Jake
There's
Smith
a lot.
doesn't start.
There's some pent up anti-Longhorn in that program right now. They really want this matchup, and I hope they understand what they wish for. Zach Swanson is prime example of a guy that's really wants a chunk. He wants a piece of Texas. There's some former Horns over there, and not just Longhorns. There's some former Texas high school football products that wish or wanted to go to Texas at some point, got ignored. Now they're at Arizona State. There's a nice little collective in Tempe building with that.
Let's kind of think about
more so than other schools.
Right. And it's very curious because you've seen, Matt Rule at Nebraska has obviously tried really hard to come and get Texas kids, made Texas work really hard for Michael Terry III. That's still about 4 states and a flight away. Arizona, flying to Phoenix is pretty easy, but that's still a few states away. What is if you're that type of program in Arizona and now you play in the Big 12, what's the value? I know there is some, but what is the value, Justin, to coming from Tempe, from Phoenix, and trying to recruit in Texas to Arizona State?
The first thing that's the most obvious is the insane amount of talent in Texas compared to the state of Arizona. And I say that fully knowing Arizona puts out some dudes every year. If we've noticed anything in the last 10 years, Arizona's got some guys at the top of their class every year. But you come to Texas because it's just an unbelievable resource of college prospects, top to bottom. You can look in East Texas, you can look in DFW, you look in Houston. They go out to West Texas as well. Look, they want the best athletes, and if you want the best athletes, there's 3 states: Texas, Florida, and California. And for whatever reason, they've got some California cats for sure. They're always going to have those guys, but there's more of a Texas sense there. There's more guys because there's guys on the staff that have a lot of good Texas ties. A lot of those guys that played at Texas were under Brian Carrington when they were there in Austin. And so there was a former relationship there, but they're still in Texas recruiting. They're offering kids really early. They're trying to build a bridge of sort, which that's what one of the things I think Dillingham's good at. He's a young, energetic coach, and they know, hey, we've got some ties to Texas. Why don't we use these? Why don't we maximize that? And I think that's all Arizona State's doing. They're being smart. They're going where the talent is. Now, how that works, we'll see over the next couple of years. But they've stacked a few dudes here on the roster in the last 18 months.
Yeah, and I think something Arizona State has done. I think their tight ends coach used to be the head coach at Saguaro, which is big power out there. So there's, like you mentioned, there are dudes in Arizona, and they're trying really hard to keep those dudes there. They seem like they have a little bit better track right now than actual University of Arizona does. But when you have guys like Carrington, who's got a lot of connections in the state of Texas, Samples was there for a quick minute, correct? Or am I misremembering? I know he was with Oregon with Dillingham.
I think he was maybe there for maybe a year.
Isn't he the coach? Isn't he one of their coaches now, Carrington?
Carrington,
no, he's the recruiting director.
Carrington's their corners coach. Yeah, and then Samples. I think Samples is in the NFL, or no, he's at Oregon.
Samples is at Oregon. He almost took the Sam Houston State job.
But either way, like you have connection. If you have connections like that, you've got to leverage them, and it's a different way just for schools like that to utilize something that may not be available to Arizona or even Utah. Colorado is a little bit different these days, but if you're in the middle, like Dillingham said the other day, if you're in the middle of California and a flight away from Texas, you can take advantage of those connections. Before we keep on going, we'll talk some more playoff. You got to show some love to Game Time. If you are looking to go to the Peach Bowl or any of the bowl games or any of the semifinals or even the national championship, if you want to make some return trips to Atlanta, or if you're trying to catch an NBA, NHL, maybe some NFL playoffs or a concert, head to Game Time, use the promo code ON3 and get $20 off your first purchase. Using Game Time's real easy. You can sell tickets very simply. And if you're buying tickets, you can see what the all-in price is, fees included. Don't get surprised when you hit add to cart, and you can see what your view is like from those seats. So head to Game Time, get the Game Time app, or use gametime.co. Use the promo code ON3 and get $20 off your first purchase. What time is it, Justin?
Game Time.
There we go.
Is there a bowl game tonight?
Hey, yes.
If
If it's a day ending in Y, there's a bowl game tonight.
Yeah, it has to be. That's perfect time for Game Time.
Exactly. So, hey, I think Oklahoma plays at TCU in that bowl game, right? They're not playing TCU, but they play that game in Amon Carter. So,
Is it
if you want to go
Fort Worth Helicopter Bowl or something?
If you want to go hate watch the Sooners in the Metroplex, go right ahead and be our guest with Game Time. Anything else?
Is that tonight? Is that tonight?
No, I think that one's tomorrow.
Okay. I do want to hate watch that one.
They have to play Navy?
They have to play Navy.
Oh, God.
But
Maybe.
they have had a month to prepare,
Yeah, which matters when you
which
play.
matters a lot.
Yeah.
But they also, I don't know who they have left on offense. So, yeah.
There's also, as Sandman says, USC and Texas A&M are playing too.
What
So
bowl game are they in?
the Las Vegas one, I believe. So it's not a bad one. Did you see Elko in Vegas? He was walking around like
I
with
did
one
see
of the very stereotypical Vegas showgirls, and it's like Elko and her right by each other were quite the picture. So very,
Like
very
land and tuna fish.
Oh man, it was very, very interesting. Got a few other things to go through. Any updates on Cam and Majors? The players are due back to campus today. I think they have practice today.
By 2 o'clock.
Cam, Sark is going to be stingy on injury info. Said that he was unable, or they had an MRI, had good news on that one. Majors, I feel like he could have gone back in. Sark said
Yeah,
as much.
they said he could have. Yeah.
Like if you're in protocol, you're not snapping on the sidelines. I don't think
Good
that's how.
point.
I don't think that's how concussion protocol works.
Yeah.
So just
He
kind
just
of
got his bell rang.
yeah, and usually that people think that goes along with a concussion, but it didn't. They're not letting you continue to do things if you're in protocol.
It's further, just so everybody remembers, last week Sark was saying that he was excited about where Banks and Bond both were in their progress. But you got to read between the lines. That's not committing to anything. And it turned out Banks was great. He practiced, he played, and he played really well. Shut down TJ Parker, Bond, nada. So it starts.
Without
Read
the SEC,
Inside Texas. Don't read Sark's.
right. You have to come to IT because we'll give you the straight scoop. The truth is, there's no SEC injury report. So Sark technically doesn't have to say squat. And knowing Sark, when it comes to injuries, he's not going to give away any little bit of anything.
Right.
We're going to dive into the playoffs in just a second, but going to knock out one more ad. Missed ours yesterday. Got to throw him back in here today. So here is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
ULC. Let me pull up some lines real quick because I think it's time to talk a little bit like we do on our Thursdays, what's going on in the other games. We can go over some bowls if y'all want to talk about them. Let us know in the chat. But we got this from Brett Nelson, Oregon and Ohio State. Who wins? Who's the better matchup? I think we can start there, talk a little bit about the Buckeyes, and if I could get this zoomed in right, talk a little bit about the bracket in general. Looking at a sports book of note, Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under is 55.5 for the Rose Bowl on January 1st. Let's talk about this game before we maybe get into the potential matchup for Texas. Just Ohio State and Oregon, they already played a pretty clean game last time.
Everybody
remembers Will Howard sliding at the most inopportune time possible. But these are two evenly matched teams, and Ian, it's a Big Ten versus Big Ten battle in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, this is kind of their ideal because you got like an old Pac-12 left coast team and then one of the Midwestern Big Ten teams. So kind of ideal for the Rose Bowl. I'm sure they're excited. I feel like Ohio State has maybe the most talent of any team left in the tournament.
I would agree with that.
NFL guys, right?
I would agree.
But I just don't trust Ryan Day. I feel like Dan Lanning is going to have something for him. Not a very sophisticated analysis, but I tend to lean Oregon in most of these types of games. The one thing I'd worry about for Oregon is that I watched them against Boise State early in the year, and I was like, Boise State kind of pushed those transfer tackles around a little bit. That's not so great. And then I turned my back, and then the next thing I hear is that Oregon's Derek Harmon is like a NFL draft pick, and their defensive tackles are awesome, and they're killing it. And I was like, oh, I must have figured something out. Then I watch them against Penn State, and they're kind of getting pushed around a little bit again. And so I don't know if I fully believe in this Oregon mercenary defensive front, but I don't know if Ohio State is exactly the team to take advantage of it.
Yeah, isn't Ohio State nursing some O-line injuries right now? Obviously, McLaughlin's out at center. I think they have some tackles who are out.
They lost their left tackle. I will say, though, they played this redshirt freshman left guard in round one against who'd they play in round one?
Tennessee.
And he was freaking mauling people. And so I was like, well, okay, if this redshirt freshman comes out of nowhere and is just a mauler, then that's kind of a game changer. So everybody watch for that. If you're watching this game closely, that could be the ball game right there.
Justin, what about anything about this game kind of stand out to you with, a key matchup to watch?
Just if Ohio State wins, it turns this tournament format upside down.
People are going to complain like crazy if that happens.
Dude.
And they should.
Yes and no. Yes, they should, because it's silly how they seeded everything. No, because they asked for this, Ian, and now you're going to get it. And so this is what the fans wanted.
The fans don't want Arizona State and Boise with byes, and then the one seed having to play the most talented team in the second round. That's BS.
I agree. But from a matchup standpoint, like I said earlier, I think I watched the first game. That was a fun watch. That was a good game between two good teams. It just happened to happen early in the regular season. I think they're both a little different, but in good ways. So honestly, I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think Ohio State found something against Tennessee. Maybe it was their religion. Maybe it was a new formation. They found something. Maybe it was the red pants. I don't know, but you guys said it. Like that, Ohio State might be the most talented team left in this tournament. But Dylan Gabriel, the 34-year-old, 35-year-old lefty, that's tough. That's so tough, especially when he's going to be breaking every record that quarterbacks have. I think it's a great matchup. I'm looking forward to it. If Texas can get by Arizona State, I think either one of these teams pose some major problems and something we would definitely have to talk about before the Cotton Bowl.
I think it's going to be a quarterback battle. I know that's very reductive, but I mean, if Dylan Gabriel can play like a Heisman finalist, if Dylan Gabriel can play like a Heisman finalist and be thrown to some of these great wide receivers, Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson, the one question is there's still only one Jeremiah Smith in college football.
Yep.
And he is just already at his young age.
That's what Jabbar Muhammad was paid for.
I don't think it's going to be enough.
You might be right.
Like I think that I love Trevion Henderson. I love Quinshon Judkins, but there's
the ball like they should.
there's nobody in college football quite like Jeremiah Smith, and I think that's going to be an opportunity for him. And here's the other thing: Oregon knows that. Like Dan Lanning doesn't know that they're going to try to throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith, but I do think that guy is just a big difference maker at this point.
One more Ohio State note. They've got a dude that's like 6'4", 230. He played safety last year because he's a great athlete, but he wasn't very good at it. So they moved him down to linebacker this year. Guess what? It's not that easy to learn to play inside linebacker, even as a great athlete, in 1 year. And he's like a Harold Perkins, Malik Jefferson type. His name is Sonny Styles, number 6. And you watch, Oregon is going to find that guy and pick on him and make him make decisions and run at him. And we'll see how that goes for the Buckeyes.
I think this will be a pretty split crowd in Pasadena. Like if you're an Ohio State fan, you may have already sold your ticket to the home game, as we saw from all the Tennessee people there. And yes, if you win this game, you have to play 2 more times and go to Dallas and go to Atlanta. But like the Rose Bowl is still a huge deal, even in this watered down version with the playoff. The Rose Bowl is a massive deal to these old Big Ten schools. Like, think about living in Ohio and it being December, and you get to go view the San Gabriel Mountains at sunset on January 1st. Like, that's still a big deal to a lot of these fans. So I bet we're going to see
the Rose Bowl is a huge deal to everyone at Ohio State. That's a fixture in their scheduling.
I think this is going to be a fantastic atmosphere.
Could be a great uniform matchup. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Ooh, I do wonder what Oregon's, because they can wear dark jerseys, so green or black, or hopefully they don't go yellow.
They never wear the same thing twice.
Yeah, Ohio State, they got it going on with the road jerseys. As far as the next step, playing, if Texas beats Arizona State and the Cotton Bowl ends up being, Texas versus one of these two teams, if you're Steve Sarkisian, what might you prefer at that to play in Jerry World? Tough question. They're both good. They're all good at this stage.
Yeah, they both present problems.
Yeah.
Like pick your adventure book, and it's a bad. It could be a bad inning at both. Not necessarily bad, but it's just these are both. They may be the outside of Georgia the best 2 teams in this tournament.
Yeah. Yep.
I think if I'm Texas, I would take the Ohio State risk, because we've seen that the best defensive front called by Kirby Smart, has been just an absolute wrecker for Texas offense, running the ball, all that stuff. And I think Texas has played other good defensive lines, but I don't know if I think Oregon is probably above the ones Texas has faced, but below the Georgia one. Dan Lanning's a Kirby disciple. Run some good defenses up there. They've got
Oregon's
talent.
defensive line is up there that high. I mean, they have the transfer tackle and Jamari Caldwell, which we know well out of Houston. Watched him play last year. We thought he was going to wind up in Austin. I don't know if I would. Their D line is good, and like you acknowledged Georgia, but man, there's been a few salty D lines Texas has faced this year. I don't know if I guess I was going to put Oregon up in that echelon.
I mean, I think with the talent they have with Harmon and some of the other guys out there, it's hard for me to not put them up there. And then you combine that with the Lanning aspect of it all. So I'd say Ohio State. What that does set up probably though is Ohio State fans do travel. I think the Tennessee thing is kind of throwing that off for me, but
I'd love to see Jahdae Barron and a Jeremiah Smith matchup. I would love to see that. I would hate to see a Manny Muhammad Jeremiah Smith matchup.
That would be a tough one. But I think if you're Texas, you've seen you are in. Well, I was about to say you've seen Will Howard before. You've also seen Dylan Gabriel. You've got tendencies in film from him as well.
Will Stein, very familiar with what he runs, bringing some of his stuff from Ohio, from UTSA, just some stuff he's always had. He's got a smart veteran quarterback. If you're betting, that's the guy you go with.
Yeah. It was Ohio State
Howard
2.5.
Howard has played a ton of football too, so Howard nearly took it to Texas
Last year.
2 years ago.
last year. No, last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they started the wrong quarterback in 2022, and Texas won that game as a result. 2.5. What do y'all think about that for Ohio State?
Sure.
I think Vegas knows more than us. I think that it's exactly what you said earlier, Joe. The talent on this roster, Ohio State might be the best in college.
Is there a hypothetical line for Texas and Ohio State?
I think
I saw something on Twitter about that yesterday, and I think it was Ohio State favored maybe 2 by 1.5 or 2.
I think Josh Pate may have had it.
Yeah, he had something similar to that, and I think Ohio State was the one that was favored in the rest of the games, hypothetically.
All right,
but I want to say it was 1.5 or 2.
1.5. Ohio State 1.5 over Texas, and it'd be Texas 1.5 over Oregon on the hypotheticals.
Yeah.
So we'll get to the other 2 semifinal games. But before we do, last one, got to make up for it, and that is for Prize Picks. Gentlemen, I've been putting together lineups, and hey, if you want to make bowl season a little bit more fun, get some squares, get some picks in there. And if you use the promo code Inside Texas on Prize Picks via the app or via prizepicks.com, you can play $5 and get $50 instantly. It's super easy. I wasn't into daily fantasy before I started using Prize Picks, and it has made it a lot more fun. So go to Prize Picks, use the code Inside Texas, play $5, get $50 instantly. You got bowl games, you got the NFL, you got the NBA. You've got so many different great options that you can make your selections with. So head to Prize Picks, and we thank them for sponsoring the show. All right, let's get through the other playoff games really quickly. We've got Penn State and Boise State. This one, the line is Penn State minus 10.5. And Ian, unfortunately for Boise State and Ashton Jeanty, the strength of Boise State kind of aligns with what the strength of Penn State is on defense.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna bet on James Franklin to blow these games until he blows one. I'm not ever gonna say I thought about it. I was like, they have a pretty solid team. Maybe I should take them seriously. And then they're up 14-0 on SMU. SMU is just like totally defeated. The air's out of their team. and Penn State gets a 4th and 1 on their own 19. And Franklin goes, you know what? I'm just going to breathe life into my opponent right here. I'm going to call a quarterback sneak up 14-zip in the first quarter in my own stadium on my own side of the field and go for it. Why? Why? Of course it gets stopped. SMU's knocking on the door again. They're about to score. Kevin Jennings throws another pick. James Franklin bailed out by his players. Eventually,
Tale as old as time.
Eventually, the talent disparity will not be there. And I have a screenshot of it that I put on my Substack, americaswargame.substack.com, where James Franklin is like looking up at from a clipboard and like just chewing the crap out of some gum or something when they're about to go for it on 4th down. And then you see all his assistants behind him with their arms folded, and they're all just like, oh God, what are we doing? And he's sizing it up like he's like your dad on a green, and he's like looking at a 25-foot putt to save double bogey. That's the facial expression of James Franklin. I know they have talent disparities. I know theoretically they should beat Boise State. They're going to find a way to lose this game.
Be cautious. Boise State has some magic in that stadium. Is it enough? I don't know. I really like Nick Singleton. I think he's hell to bring down. But Boise State and the Fiesta Bowl, there's something about those two that where magic happens.
My thing about Penix is that we see the breakaway runs and stuff like that, but you don't get 2,000 yards without, even if it is of Mountain West champion quality, without a good.
You mean Genty?
Genty. Well, yeah. Sorry, I don't know what I said. You don't get there without a good quality offensive line. He can't do it all by himself.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a path there if they can block just enough to let him spring the big one and put you in position to where you're kicking for 3 instead of kicking for possession, like that type of thing. But it's still just a tough path. Again, and here's the other thing. You kind of mentioned how James Franklin's players tend to bail him out. Can Drew Aller win a game for you? I don't know if we've really established that quite yet. I don't know if this is going to be the game that does, but if it happens, I don't know how confident I am in Drew Aller at this juncture.
Another funny thing about Boise is they played a base dime against UNLV in the Mountain West Championship and just totally befuddled them and shut them down. And they absolutely 100% should do it to Penn State as well. I'm hoping they do.
See if it can work.
I think it could. Because the trap is that you're like, okay, Boise's in dime. I'm just going to run the ball on Penn State. But then they can just pack everyone up on the line of scrimmage, and you think you're about to run them over, but then like a 180-pound dude runs unblocked around the edge and tackles your running back in the backfield because you don't have a blocker assigned to him. Arizona used to do that really well last year. I think Boise State is just – and they've had 3 weeks to prepare for this. They're probably sold out to preparing for Penn State.
Yeah.
It's like Justin said, there's like a magical amulet buried under the field, and only Boise knows where it is, and they're going to go out before the game and dig it up and release all kinds of crazy stuff in this game.
On that note, I think Penn State covers with 10.5. What about last game? I think this is the most this is honestly
somebody's going to come out of this one bumped and bruised.
I am really curious how Georgia is going to try to make this work without Carson Beck, because I know Texas fans are all in PTSD with Gunnar Stockton. Stockton made a few throws. I don't think he did anything super impressive. He made some good plays, but he didn't make
he was a spark.
Great plays that Beck is capable of.
Do you know what he helped them with, though, is that with Carson Beck, they kept trying to run like a pro-style passing game without any receivers. And so when he went out and they had Gunnar Stockton, they finally buried that dream. And we're like, okay, we're just going to run the ball. And they're freaking great at it still, as it turns out.
Yeah, Trevor Etienne.
I actually think Notre Dame's a better running team than Georgia. They definitely have more horses. Honestly, might have better horses when it comes to this running back stable, not the O-line. Maybe the O-line. Actually, maybe the O-line.
I
Quarterback
think
position. Notre Dame's going to be sneaky here, guys.
The prevailing notion has been like, of this side of the bracket, Notre Dame has the best chance of
flipping upside down.
Of beating Georgia, because like I don't see Penn State doing it, I don't see Boise State do it, Indiana wasn't going to do it, SMU wasn't going to do it, and so now Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman, they're going to be down one of their tackles, with that defense is really strong. I got some All-Americans back there as well. Should be neutral site, but still should be very Georgia heavy. I don't know. I think this one could be close. Looking at the odds, it looks like Georgia is a 1.5 point favorite.
Yeah, like this game is as close of a matchup as Oregon and Ohio State in some facets. Except these two teams are very complementary. Like they both want to run the ball, they both want to control the tempo, and they both want to play really good defense up front. They can do that, and they both have great safeties on the back end. Like these two teams match up really well. This could be a 16-13 type game, because I don't know if there's explosiveness here, but there are meat and potatoes, big boys, and a lot of running back mentality, a lot of running style mentality. This is going to be, I think, a fun matchup. I think Notre Dame is a little sneaky, guys. I love their tailbacks. Like Notre Dame has 3 running backs that they can rely on at any time, and Riley Leonard is tried and true. Like that's a guy that I don't think the bright lights are gonna face him at all. I think Notre Dame's gonna give Georgia everything they want. I don't know if Stockton's enough for Georgia. Their defense is what's gonna make sure they're in this ball game. But to win it, is it gonna be Etienne? Because he looked okay against Texas, but he hasn't looked like he did at Florida. It damn sure doesn't look like his brother in Jacksonville. So this matchup's nice.
I think if Riley Leonard plays out of his mind, I think Notre Dame wins. If Riley Leonard loses his mind, I think Georgia wins this pretty easy. I think it's going to be this game's going to come down to him. I think there's enough infrastructure around Georgia to where Stockton won't be asked to do a whole lot, and it'll be Etienne misdirection. Mike Bobo's not great, but he's not an idiot. I think not Al Golden, Mike Denbrock's going to have to really pull out all the stops and get Riley Mills passing in a way that he hasn't done a ton all season in order for Notre Dame to win this one.
I was leaning Notre Dame. I had Notre Dame on this side of the bracket, but then when I watched them against Indiana, they had one huge run. And then other than that, they did a lot of nothing. And I was like, when they play Georgia, who's a lot better than Indiana, how's this going to look?
I think they're playing down to their opponent.
Maybe. It made me nervous. And then they lost Riley Mills, one of their top defensive tackles, for the season in the game. And that not so great as well. So I think Notre Dame is I'm with Joey Austin now. I'm leaning Georgia now.
I think it's going to be ugly.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
No, nobody said this. That's not. You play football on a field, and okay, but I don't think that's what anybody said.
No.
And
Mike is a little misunderstood. That's okay.
Maybe there's a chance to see them later on down the road. So
we're not doing transitive property here. Not on Christmas Day, post Christmas Day. No transitive property here.
That'll about do it. 1 hour good football talk. Thank you for spending the tail end of your Christmas holiday with us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, head to InsideTexas.com. You can get
You're
1 week of
struggling.
access for $1. That'll help you get all the coverage of not only transfer portal stuff, but also the college football playoff as well. So, Ian, Justin, thank you all so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.